The movie opens up with a prologue. We see Peter Weyland and the synthetic android David discussing creation and the pursuit of humankind's origins. Towards the end of the prologue, we see the tension between the human and the synthetic, a feeling that David will carry decades into the future. The main story begins years later with the spaceship Covenant on a route to a remote planet, Origai 6, where humans plan to set up a new colony. In the ship, we are introduced to another synthetic, a clone of David, called Walter, who is maintaining the ship, the crew in hypersleep within it, and the embryos they are traveling with. A neutrino burst from nearby damages the ship, causing multiple system failures and awakening the crew from their deep sleep earlier than scheduled. Most of the crew members manage to escape from their cryo chambers, but some are unable to, and multiple lives are lost in the chaos. One of the lives lost includes that of the former captain, and his wife, Daniels, is seen mourning him in silence. Later, she shares how she feels with the synthetic Walter, and Daniels talks about how she and her husband wanted to build a cabin once they reached the new planet. After the captain's death, a man called Chris Oram assumes command and orders for the immediate repair of the ship. The crew asks to do something to honor the crewmates they've lost, but obsessed with control, Oram rejects this. During the repairs, one of the crewmates, Tennessee, receives a mysterious transmission from a nearby planet. The transmission seems to come from another human being. But what would another human be doing so far out in space? The planet seems habitable, and out of curiosity, Oram and the crew decide to land and explore, planning to make it their new colony if it's good enough. Oram's second-in-command, Daniels, is against this and wants to oppose it. But since Oram is obsessed with power and a need for respect, he turns her down and demotes her from second-in-command. Some members of the crew, including Oram, Daniels, and the synthetic Walter, form an expedition team that lands on the mysterious planet. Upon landing, the planet seems habitable and perfect for a new colony, but Daniels finds it odd that there are no other living things on the planet. In their exploration, the team comes across a strange ship, and in it they discover remnants of another expedition that Walter identifies as the Prometheus Expedition. Walter tells Daniels that the ship for the Prometheus mission had gone missing, and the one they were in did not even look like it was made by humans. As the crew explores, some of the members are infected by some sort of sentient spores. One man who gets infected is called Ledward. Ledward has separated from the main expedition team with a crew member named Kareen to collect samples for more research on the planet. As Kareen was working, Ledward moved away to take a break, and it was here where he saw a cloud of spores moving in a very peculiar way and infecting him through the ear. Back with the main expedition team, another man also inhales the spores. The spores take effect very quickly, and as soon as Kareen is done and prepared to leave, Ledward begins showing symptoms. He finds it hard to breathe and cannot even walk properly, so Kareen rushes back to the shuttle they landed on and manages to get him into the medical bay. But what they find is something they cannot explain. The rest of the crew back in the Covenant notices the chaos that is starting below, but they cannot communicate properly with the rest of the team. Oram and the rest of the expedition party also get news of this and begin to rush back to their landing shuttle. On the way there, one of the members begins showing symptoms similar to Ledward's. In the shuttle, Kareen and Ledward's situation takes a turn for the worse. The infection in Ledward turns out to create an alien creature that tears its way out of Ledward's back, and it turns out to be the first neomorph in the movie, an alien creature whose only instinct is to kill living things. A crew member named Ferris locks Kareen and Ledward in the medbay to prevent contamination of the disease, but having realized what it turned out to be, she tries to grab a weapon and kill the neomorph. Ferris arrives too late to save Kareen and ends up in a battle to save her life from the alien too. Ferris ends up blowing up the shuttle, leaving the expedition team with no way out of the planet. Up in the Covenant, the remaining crew is trying to contact the expedition team, but the planet's weather has gotten so bad that all communication with the expedition team is lost. All they know is something has gone horribly wrong. The rest of the expedition team arrives at the shuttle site in time to see it go up in flames, and the situation gets even worse when the infected crew member they had finally blows up to release the neomorph that was growing inside of him. The crew gets into a battle with the Neomorphs. In a fierce battle, they lose some crew members, and Walter sacrifices a hand as he tries to protect Daniels from a Neomorph. When the situation seems dire, the team gets rescued by a man in a cloak. He scares the Neomorph away by shooting a very bright flare and takes the remaining crew members to a safe place. The surviving crew members are led to the ruins of an earlier civilization that inhabited the planet. It is here that the cloaked man reveals himself to be the synthetic David, who arrived there from the Prometheus mission. The crew rests and successfully sets up communications to the Covenant, but outside, we see the Neomorphs closing in. As the crew rests, Walter gets to have a private conversation with David. As they talk, we find out that David harbors hate towards humans, and in a flashback, we see that it was David who destroyed the previous civilization on the current planet. The Neomorph enters the ruins that the crew has taken shelter in and kills one of the crew members. Hearing a scream, Orem rushes to the source, only to find that David has reached there first. David seems sympathetic to the Neomorph and tries to stop Orem from killing it. But after Orem sees what the creature has done to his crewmate, he shoots the Neomorph dead and threatens to do the same to David if he doesn't explain what's going on. Meanwhile, Daniels, who is also exploring the ruins, finds out David's true intention. She comes across records showing that it was David who experimented on humans and ended up creating the Neomorphs. Back to Orem, David takes him to a cave and lures him into a trap. Orem gets killed by an alien created by David, and from his death, a xenomorph is born, far deadlier than the previous aliens. The xenomorph goes on a rampage, killing more of the surviving crew and infecting the last soldier, Sergeant Lope, who manages to escape from the xenomorph as it mauls his crewmate. Daniels is found by David, so she confronts him about his plans and the crimes he has already committed. David quickly tries to kill her to protect his secrets and secure his way out of the planet, but Walter steps in to rescue her. As the two androids fight, Daniels escapes and contacts the Covenant, asking for a quick evacuation. We see Walter winning against David and even being able to subdue the evil android. But before he finishes him off, David is seen trying to grab a knife, and the fight is cut off. Outside of the ruins, we see Tennessee arrive with another shuttle from the Covenant. The only survivors from the expedition are Daniels, an infected Sergeant Lope, and Walter, who walks out of the ruins just in time to join them in the shuttle. Before they completely take off, the xenomorph jumps onto the shuttle and takes off with them. So, Daniels grabs a gun and heads out to fight it by herself. After a thrilling battle on top of the shuttle, Daniels kills the xenomorph, and they are finally able to leave the planet with only 3 survivors from the original expedition. Back in the Covenant, Sergeant Lope seems to have been carrying another xenomorph, and it hatches. The xenomorph kills more of the crew until Daniels decides to put an end to it. Together with Tennessee and Walter, Daniels lures the xenomorph to the terraforming bay. In her second battle against these aliens, Daniels kills the xenomorph and throws it out into space, coming out on top once again. Finally, the remaining crew resumes their mission to Origai 6. We see Daniels putting Tennessee back into his cryo chamber, and she does the same for herself with Walter's help. But as she says goodbye, locked up in her cryo chamber, she asks Walter to help her build the cabin she wanted to build with her husband. But Walter doesn't seem to know what she is talking about. At this moment, it dawns on Daniels that the synthetic she's talking to is actually David, disguised as Walter. But it is too late for her to do anything, and she falls into hypersleep. Having taken over the ship, the movie ends with David listening to music, gleefully adding his alien embryos to the rest of the human embryos, and resuming the trip to Origai 6 as Walter. Only he knows what his plan is once they reach their destination. Talk about a twist ending. What did you think of that big reveal at the end? Let us know in the comments. And be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming movie recaps. Thanks for watching.